Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Can you recognize when you're feeling stressed? And how do you typically react to stress? And can you put a handle on what are your stressors? Do you understand yourself well enough to act on the things that are stressing you, or do you let it build up? Today we're going to explore the MBTI preferences, what stress can look like for each, and look at some stress management strategies. Now let's start with the first dichotomy, extroverts and introverts. Now extroverts can become stressed when they're deprived of social interaction and external stimulation, and they might feel overwhelmed by too much solitude. Introverts can become stressed when they're forced to highly social and crowded environments, and this might leave them drained and exhausted. Now, I've just been away on a beautiful island resort holiday with my husband, Paul, who really enjoys his space and time alone. He had a great time. He read books, sat by the pool, watched TV, and wasn't disturbed by anyone. Now, for me, there wasn't really a lot to do, and not many people to talk to. So the lack of external interaction really was quite stressful. I was actually very excited to get back to the hustle and bustle of the mainland. Mind you, I did get a lot of work done because there wasn't much to distract me. Let's look at intuition, the big picture, and sensing, the details. Now, sensors prefer routine and predictability and might become stressed when they're faced with sudden changes or unexpected situations. Intuitives, on the other hand, might get stressed when they're required to focus on too many concrete details, routine or repetitive tasks. Let me use our island holiday as an example once again. Paul and I use our sensing preference, and we're very often creatures of habit, and we like predictable outcomes. So as we settled into island life, we did do the same things every day. We went to breakfast at the same place, sat at the same table, and sat around the pool for the same amount of time in the same chairs, ordered the same lunch. It was delicious. And had we not been booked into restaurants by the resort, we probably would have gone back to the same one each night, because that actually makes us feel comfortable. My friend who's intuitive felt stressed just listening to our day. Mind you, the extrovert didn't really love it that much. She just couldn't believe that we hadn't explored all the options that were available and that were more exciting and might have taken us out of our comfort zone. We didn't care. We felt very unstressed. Different strokes for different folks. Now on to decision-making preferences. Thinking using logic to make decisions and feeling using our values to make decisions. Thinkers may become very stressed when dealing with emotionally charged situations or when they perceive that there's a lack of logical consistency. For example, someone crying can greatly stress the thinker, as my thinking family have let me know. They want to fix the situation with questions and logic, not comfort with hugs and emotional reassurance. This doesn't make them unsympathetic. It's just not their preferred way of consoling people. Now, feeling people might become worried when they have to make tough decisions that could hurt other people's feelings, or if they sense that there's conflict in their relationships. And this means they often overthink and become too emotionally stressed when making those decisions. Then there are the judging and perceiving types. Judges prefer structure and order, and they can become stressed when they're faced with too many unresolved tasks and a lack of closure. Life in a mess can be extremely stressful. The teen years of floor robes can do many judging parents' heads in, whereas perceivers value flexibility and spontaneity, and they may become stressed when they're forced to make quick decisions or adhere to strict schedules. They need lots of choices and time. I'm Kate Mason, and welcome to Parenting and Personalities. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. My guest and fellow interviewer is Tracy Noon. Tracy and I are lifelong friends, and we both use the MBTI as an essential tool in our business lives and as parents and partners. And we're going to share with you the important and positive aspects of knowing and understanding your personality type and what it brings to the family journey. Today, we're looking at understanding your MBTI stresses and how to deal with them. So I'm going to get Trey just to introduce what kind of type she is. And we're going to talk about how we typically react to stress depending on whether we're an introvert or an extrovert.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me on again. I am an INFJ. So with that I, I'm not a strong I. I'm fairly close to an E. However, when I get really stressed, the I becomes stronger. So in other words, what I do is I typically withdraw, and I need to not talk to other people. I need to not have a lot going on. I need to be able to focus and get done whatever needs to be done. And my guess is, because you're a strong extrovert, my guess is you're probably the opposite. Is that right?
It is. So I am an ESFP. So when I'm stressed, I actually go out into the outer world more. All I want to do is I want to almost escape the stress. So I end up meeting more friends, doing more things, and the things that are bothering me sit in the back of my head, but I just find more things to do. And in a way that does create a stress for me as well, because I'm double stressing myself because I'm out there doing too much at the time.
Even hearing you say that makes me feel so stressed, because it's the opposite of what I do. And I'm like a homing beacon to the stress. So instead of wanting to escape the stress, I need to stare at it and get close to the thing that's stressing me and do that one thing. Like everything else just fades, and relationships fade, other priorities fade. That one thing that's really stressing me gets my whole attention. So it's really, when you talk about going out into the world and talk, I go, oh, that's so stressful. And I'm probably thinking that you're thinking the opposite.
I'm thinking, how intense. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why would you sit there and stare at one problem or think about one problem and overwhelm yourself with the thoughts of that? However, when you do that and you stare at that stress, how do you get yourself out of the stress zone? Like I'm running around, like as my mother would have said back in the day, with a chook with its head cut off, so to speak, and you're sitting there staring at the thing that's bothering you. How do you take that step to get away from that stress, out of that stress?
Probably two things. One is addressing the thing that's stressing me. So if it's a deadline or whatever, just freaking getting on and doing the work relieves the stress. Or the other thing is, if I'm caught in it and I can't find my way out of it, I will break the stress. I'll usually get up and make a cup of coffee or whatever, and usually go outside, look up at the clouds, look at flowers in my garden, or do something like that and lift myself. I think that lifts me more into the intuitive space. And in the intuitive space, I can often see a solution to the thing that's stressing me. Right. So it kind of, like a deadline is get on with the work, but if it's a life problem or whatever, then perspective, lifting myself up above it sometimes helps me. What about you?
So for me, slowing down, of course. So I actually make myself sit and think and analyze what it is that is actually bothering me. Like you've done, your initial thing is to do that. My secondary thing is to go into that mode, sit in it, work out what I can do about it, use my sensing side, be very practical and find out the details of what it is that's stressing me, and then actually work on those details. I was talking to someone the other day about, they were stressed about something, and I said to them, well, why are you just sitting there in that stress? Why don't you learn about what's wrong with you? Like learn what's happening to you. And then once you have that knowledge in your hand, then you can take those details and put them into practice.
See, that's a very S answer, and I love that. So you would know that sometimes the thing that's stressing me is a feelings situation. I'll get my feelings get hurt, or I'll get caught up in some feelings, and that's when I call you. I call you and I say, Kate, get sensible with me, because you take a very sensing approach to my feelings, and you just logically work through them. It's like a slap around, and it's exactly what I need because I'm caught in my feelings. So your S is great for my F.
Yes.
When it comes to stress about feelings. Yeah.
And when we're discussing this, when we look at the thinking, feeling part of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, you and I are both feeling types. So, a lot of the time our stresses can come from worrying about other people's feelings, worrying about what people feel and think about us, wanting to be the best that we can be and take care of others. So tell me about what your feeling side does do when you're under stress.
Oh, well, if I don't have you to call, if I can't call a friend, if you put together I'm in a really feeling space, then what tends to happen is that my introversion will kick in and I will withdraw into my wound like a child, basically. I get really cross with myself when I do it because I feel myself doing it, but my feelings are all hurt and I'm like, oh, I don't want to interact with the world because the world just hurt me, so I withdraw. It's not a good place to be. And that is, again, when I typically ring you and I go, okay, help me to process this because I know you'll help me to lift out of it. And you always do, always. So,
thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. How about you with your F and your E? How does that play
My
out?
F and E, well, when I'm just talking about the place that you get into, a lot of people listening must also find themselves in that place. So there's a strategy sitting in there that call a friend that maybe could be more practical around things and pull you out. My feeling side, when that all comes up, I'm really lucky because I've got a thinking family to slap me around and pull me back down to ground and to earth and go, really, Mum? Why are you feeling like that? Because it's not your fault. It's not your problem. It's not this and that. And their logic really slaps me around and I have to sit back and go, actually, Kate, you're right. I have got my sensing details, but the logic of their conversation pulls me back in. So if you are a feeling type of person, often a thinking person can give you the logical outcome of that, to show you that it's not all about feelings. Sometimes things are just logical and they're things that do happen in that sense. So for me, I get caught on decisions a lot of the time because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Okay, so stress-wise, often we're not talking about procrastination today, but often I get caught and I'm immobilized stress-wise because I don't know what to do with that person. I don't know what to say. I haven't got the intuition around because I am a straight shooter, I haven't got the intuition around phrasing a conversation in a feeling way that makes the other person feel comfortable, I feel quite often. So that stresses me.
Oh, that's really interesting because that never stresses me.
I know, because you're an intuitive feeler.
Yeah.
So intuitive feelers like yourself write amazing cards for a start. They put, especially if they're introverted, they can take themselves out of that problem and see it in so many different perspectives and solve people's problems, whereas I don't have that. And I acknowledge that. I just know that I have my basic sensibility sitting there. But to solve a really huge problem that needs a lot of dimensions is not stressful for you, but it is for me. I become overwhelmed. I think, I can't give them advice. Like, this is just too big for me, whereas you can fly with big.
Yeah, actually, I do see that. I see that in our relationship. It's no wonder we're friends.
Yeah.
We're good for each other. Because I have definitely had conversations with you where you felt overwhelmed by too much, and I don't feel overwhelmed at all by that that complexity. And I know that there are moments like that when you have conversations with me to help you move forward.
Yes, very much.
And yeah, so interesting, isn't it?
So it's really good to know someone who is of another type or someone who is intuitive. Often if you're caught in stress, like you say, I bring you down, but you also take me up. So really important to realise how important that is in it. I've just said important about 100 times. I'm really apologise for that. In terms of stress, what kind of activities do you engage in when you're stressed? And being an introvert, I can imagine. But where does your head take you? And does your J or P come into your stress, into coping with that?
So my escape from stress, if I'm wanting to escape stress, it's intuitive, it's introverted intuition. That's where I go. So I will, as I said before, I will stand at the top of a cliff and look out at the ocean and all my stress just disappears. Or I could lie on my lawn and watch the clouds passing and all my stress disappears. So, and I feel completely re-energized. Like, that's wonderful for me. So that's if it's escape. If it's something I can't escape, like a deadline at work, then the J kicks in, and it's write a list, tick things off the list, get the task done, and that relieves the stress.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. So my stresses are often the fact that I'm so busy. Like when we talk about this, I get busy. But if I want to relieve my stress, I find people and I find familiar places. And as everybody who knows me knows, I have coffee shops that I love to hang out in, and they all greet me like I'm an old friend, because I'm paying a lot of money for their coffee shop.
For the
friendship. I pay for my friendship. But I will organise to meet someone. I will organise to talk with someone. It just de-stresses me. I think extroverts find that talking is a really great de-stressor. And a sensing type, being with familiarity. And when we talk about lists, to sit down and actually write a decent list can de-stress me, because I can look at all the volume of things that I've got, and then I make a choice and I go, which things would I like to do now to de-stress myself? And I pick my most important, and then I let the others go, because there's no point in being stressed about everything really. So I let those things go. So sometimes sitting and acknowledging your stress is probably a pretty hard thing for everyone, because I think a lot of the time we just keep rolling, and then all of a sudden it actually explodes. It's not I'll just start taking it easy now. Often people go into overwhelm, and then we have a whole lot of issues that happen that we possibly could have prevented before we got to that stage. So it's really important to sit there and recognise your stresses, particularly listening now, what is stressing you? How can you deal with them? And going into feelings about stress. And when you're a non-feeling person, telling a thinker to go into their feeling side about their stress is really hard, because I talked about this the other day with someone who's a thinking type, and they said, but I don't want to think about my feelings, because once a thinking type person gets into their feelings, the stress is that they might cry, or they might lose control of that emotion, and then they don't feel good. Feeling people always, have a cry, you'll feel so much better afterwards. But to tell the truth, a lot of people don't. Like I have feeling people, no, you need to cry. No, not all the time. And thinking types especially really struggle with that, and struggle with that kind of compassion. So acknowledging your stress, if you're a thinking type, is to start your logical process going. Just get logical about things and start writing things in your life. Correcting them, because that makes them feel better. When they've sat down and they've had time to think about things logically, they just feel more in control in that sense. But often we don't acknowledge it. We sit in it.
I guess the thing too about stress is that a certain amount of stress in life, in day-to-day life, is actually really helpful, because it gets you moving and gets things done. So too little stress and you waste time.
You're a blob.
Yep, you waste time. Too much stress and you get these feelings of overwhelm, and then avoidance, or blowing up or whatever. So it's really trying to find that sweet spot and manage the outlying. Like if you're too under stressed,
yes,
giving yourself a kick up the bum and finding some things to do. And if you're overwhelmed, having the people that can help you through that, like we help each other, but also, as you say, recognizing when you're even getting there, where am I on the stress curve?
A lot of people just don't understand it, don't understand themselves well enough to recognize it. And I think perfectionists go on pushing it because they don't want to recognize it, because they haven't got everything perfect yet either. Yeah. So I spoke to someone about perfectionism a while ago, and that's a huge stretch. I
don't have that.
No, nor do I. Thank goodness for that. There's no stress around perfectionism here. No. At this table. We're all good. We can at least work our way out of that. So if you are feeling stressed, sit in it. Think about the reasons why you might be stressed. Go with any feelings that you're feeling about it at the time. Perhaps look at your MBTI type, your extroversion and introversion. What makes you feel comfortable in the inner and outer world? Thinking and feeling. Are you a feeling person? Do you need a good cry? Are you a thinking person? No. Do you need someone to talk to logically and just line up your ducks and look at them sitting there. And J and P, are you stressed because you're like me and you're letting so many things go that you need to get on top of it? Or perhaps like you are so on top of it even though you don't think you're on top of it. And you don't recognise that actually you are so on top of everything that you're just adding more to your list.
Interesting. I have to think about that.
Thanks for joining me today, Trace. It's been really lovely to have you back.
Thanks, Kate. It's always fun.
So when looking to reduce your MBTI stress levels, the following tips might be useful. Now, extroverts, you need to ensure that you have regular social interactions, but also allow yourself some quiet times for introspection. And introverts, you could look for opportunities to be alone and to recharge with activities that align with what your interests are and your hobbies. If you're a sensing type, you could plan and organise your tasks and create your schedules, preparing for potential changes in advance. And intuitives, you can look at breaking down tasks into manageable chunks, finding creative solutions, and engaging in activities that really stimulate your imagination. If you're a thinking type, you might have to practice empathy and actually recognise the value of emotional expression. Sometimes you can benefit from discussing your feelings with trusted friends. Feeling types, you should focus on problem solving and objective analysis when faced with difficult decisions. Sometimes it benefits from setting boundaries when dealing with conflict. To lower stress levels for judging types, prioritising tasks, creating to-do lists, and setting clear goals will help you reduce feelings of pressure and overwhelm. And perceivers, such as myself, should practice time management and developing strategies for making decisions efficiently while allowing for some adaptability. It's important to note we're all unique and individual responses to stress can vary. The MBTI is just one tool for understanding personality and stress management. Exploring stress management techniques tailored to your specific needs and preferences is key to effectively managing stress. Finding the tools that work for you is the most important. Take action, get to know yourself, de-stress your life, and enjoy your time in the sun. Life is what you make of it. Thank you for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd leave a rating and a review that would help others learn about this podcast. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Stories and Strategies, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.